Hello and welcome to another podcast of Father and Joe. I am Joe Rocky here with Father Boniface Hicks. And Father, I wanted to continue this conversation from the one that we had last time about the sign of peace and the peace of being close to Christ. And we had left off kind of building up anticipation for this one with an example of how you can see people coming up to the altar and receive different experiences in the Eucharist. And I wanted to begin this conversation at that point.
Yeah, it's amazing in the Mass, in the liturgy, what a masterful instrument has been created by God and given to us that allows the whole range of human experience to emerge. And I just think of myself and the places that I've been across uh, 15 years, 14, well, I guess about 20 years that I've been to Mass every day, 14 years that I've celebrated Mass every day, every day. And I think of the range of experiences over those last 14 years, over those last 20 years, on a daily basis, sometimes exhausted, you know, having slept not at all or having slept very little, having Mass early in the morning, and just having a thread of attention, trying to give my whole thread of attention to what's happening in front of me. Sometimes in great celebrations, at ordinations, the ordination of a bishop, which is about 3 hours long, at Easter vigils, where people are received into the faith, again, hours-long masses, solemn, glorious, very simple daily masses that I've attended, just so many different experiences because my life has grown. I've gone through all kinds of things. And I remember a time when I was really struggling. Suffering was misunderstood, I felt that I was being treated very badly. And I was able to bring that suffering into the liturgy, into the Mass. And what happens at the Mass is that Jesus' own suffering is made present. His sacrifice is represented there. And as I spoke the words of consecration, take this, all of you, and eat of it, for this is my body, which will be given up for you. I was feeling every word of that because I felt like I was offering my body. I felt like the kind of persecution I was experiencing was united with Jesus in this profound way. And I was feeling strength from that because I knew that he was in it with me. I knew that I was sharing that with him, and I felt his strength coursing through my veins, coursing through my heart. So there's that kind of experience that we can have. Sometimes I've just been filled with joy, just so grateful, so joyful, things just working out, falling right into place, and I'm moved to tears by that. And without anybody seeing, probably, I mean, there are tears that are coming down my cheeks, and my heart is breaking, opening. Sometimes in times of great loss, I mean, celebrating the funeral of my own mother, and my heart was so raw, and just was really in touch with that, and I was able to feel that, to go through that. Sometimes kind of wondering in a place of uncertainty, what's the future going to bring? What's happening? Why are these things happening? And just able to open that up and hold that before the Lord in the Mass as we go through the prayers of the Mass. You know, just everything. Everything's in there. Discovery, excitement, hopefulness, sadness, suffering. Everything's in there. And that's what's so beautiful, is that there's really a place in the Mass where we can go through everything. And I could do that. And the amazing thing is, while I'm perhaps heartbroken, the experiences of loss that I've had personally in the context of another Mass, I really had a grace at Mass just before my mother died that as I was holding up the Eucharist, I just heard in my heart Jesus saying, "From now on, you will find her in me." And so for days, weeks after her death, every time I looked at the Eucharist, I was seeing my mother. So there I was, my heart just raw, with moved by that, experiencing the loss of my mother, and yet also the sweetness of knowing that she's there with Jesus. Somebody next to me was 1,000 miles away from that, was experiencing joy, maybe boredom, tiredness, whatever it was. And my experience didn't inflict on his experience. His experience didn't inflict on my experience. We could really be in our own very alive place with the Lord in the Mass. And that's what's so beautiful about the Mass. And so, we want to make some effort to attention, but our attention is twofold. We want to be attentive to the mystery that's in front of us in the Mass, but we also need to be attentive to the mystery that's within us in our own human experience wherever we are that day. And we want to bring those two things together, and they always fit. And so that's the real key, to be attentive to the mystery outside of us and to be attentive to the mystery inside of us, and simply to bring them together. Sometimes we're tempted to suppress the mystery inside of us, like I have to become something else. I've got to become this kind of pious presentation. I've got to stir up some particular kind of feeling. I've got to get rid of maybe my anger, maybe my irritation, maybe my frustration. That I've got to somehow, amputate this thing so that I can get into this other space where I'm supposed to feel happy and excited, or I'm supposed to feel warm and moved, or something along those lines. And, that's just...
So, Father, with that being said, one of the things that I had noticed is that there's a confidence that comes whenever you open yourself up, as you had mentioned, at the altar, even on the receiving side as the person who's in the Mass participating in it. And what I have noticed, both in myself and as well as with people around me, is that the more you develop that quiet confidence in Christ, the better you carry yourself, and inherently the better the rest of things in the rest of your life start going. And that's something that I can't really quantifiably measure, but you can just see it, that the people who are having an extra confidence that even if something isn't perfect right now, but it's going to work out better because of the experiences and the trusting that you have in Christ, essentially. So that was the thought that I wanted to introduce here. I know that you were kind of tell us some of the examples that you have, but in the prior conversations, you had mentioned about how people coming into confession visibly can change, having weight lifted off of them. And I've noticed the same thing at communion as well. And I want to see if you, as a person who's obviously given communion every day, as you mentioned, for the last 14 years, has seen something else, or if I'm just flat out crazy.
Well, I like what you said, Joe, in terms of having the confidence to really enter into the mystery, to receive of that, and to bring ourselves there. As I said, being attentive to the mystery within us and bringing ourselves to the mystery outside of us. That is to say, the love of Christ, the love of God made manifest in Christ in the Eucharist. And we do need some confidence. It's one of the reasons you and I are doing this podcast, right? And, is to give people some confidence, to help people take hold of this truth, to believe more deeply. When we hear other people testify about it, it gives us confidence. And we're able to press ourselves, take a risk, take a step into that space a little bit more deeply. And it's a risk to open our hearts, to be more vulnerable. So if we have confidence that there's a grace there, that we are loved, that it's safe, then we can risk being vulnerable and really bringing whatever it is inside of us, whether it's our fear or our pain or our tears or our joy. We have the courage to be vulnerable there because we have the confidence of how we're going to be received in our experience of communion. And what you said, Joe, about visible, the tangible experience that's visible even for others, a burden lifted from confession. Same thing, to have confidence that Christ is there, to have confidence that his power is infinite, and to have confidence that his forgiveness, his love is unconditional, and it's for everyone. All we have to do is let him love us, let him take away our sin. We have to part with it. We have to have the courage to reach out, hand it out to him. And the same is true in the Eucharist. When people really open their hearts, when they really make a space in their lives for him, when they really take the risk to be vulnerable, when we really take the risk to be vulnerable, then we experience something very deeply in the Eucharist. And sometimes we see it in giving someone the Eucharist. It's certainly not uncommon that I see people with their faces already tear-streaked. Clearly tears have fallen, and I see them visibly moved at the way that they're at the moment of receiving him, sometimes moved with joy, sometimes moved with tears, with that kind of openness. So we certainly see that in the context of the Eucharist and in the context of communion. So but the challenge is for us, are we going to, it's too easy to make it just a perfunctory action, just doing our thing, going through the motions, saying the words, with our minds a million miles away, with our hearts walled off, and no encounter takes place. Or we can really bring ourselves, let the words speak to us, let the gestures speak to us, and we can become vulnerable before the Lord when we receive him in the Eucharist.
Yeah, I like how you put that in there. You have to let him love you. And I sometimes think that's a skill that people don't recognize that you can become better at. As far as being easier to be liked and loved. Just think about it with your friends. One of the most easiest ways is to show up and hang out with your friends more. And coming to masses, it would be the example of doing that with Christ. And the other parts of it is just, some self-reflection. Are you easy to talk to? Are you naturally combative? Do you want to hear what the other person is saying, or do you have to always be right? And those are some things that you can easily think about, and over time, you can't easily correct them, but over time, you gradually can correct them and be a little bit better at them tomorrow than you were yesterday. And I think that self-awareness of making yourself open and easier to love, to be able to receive Christ in the same way that we've been talking about these last two casts, is how you get to the benefits. Because I'm sure that there's a part of our audience out there that's thinking, well, obviously, it's known because they've gone down that journey. And then there's another segment of our audience who has no idea that journey even exists. And, as you mentioned, it's part of why we do this cast. But I just wanted to highlight that in this moment in the cast.
I love that you said that, Joe. It's so true that we can get better at letting ourselves be loved. And one of the ways we practice that is also in our human relationships. And it's something that we've talked about before, but the relationship of spiritual direction is meant to facilitate that. And a good marriage can facilitate that, and good parental love can facilitate that, and good friendships can facilitate that, where we let ourselves be loved. And that requires letting the walls down, that requires accepting our limitations, that requires accepting compliments, accepting the ways that people want to love us, to serve us, the ways that they want to compliment us and encourage us. That means accepting the different gestures of love from people the way that maybe they want to listen to us, if we are willing to actually speak from our hearts, not just put up a show, not just put on our best side or show our best features, but if we really want to share our hearts and let someone listen to us and let someone receive us and then ask for help and let someone help us and share our wounds and our fears and let someone respond with courage and encouragement, and we get better at it, because a simple principle which we don't feel, although we've experienced it if we've been on the receiving end of it, there is nothing more beautiful than vulnerability. That's what we feel from the outside. When someone is vulnerable with us, when we see that vulnerability, we can think of little babies. Little babies are just big piles of vulnerability. And nothing is more beautiful than vulnerability. Usually, there's nothing uglier than defenses, than what we do to cover up our vulnerability. The kind of posturing at showing off on the one hand, or the kind of self-hatred, beating ourselves up on the other hand, or the kind of hiding where we won't let anything be seen and we cover up under silence or under lies. These things are ugly, but the vulnerability that's there, the little child that's there, the little part of us that longs to be loved, is so beautiful. It doesn't feel beautiful when we're in it, but it always looks beautiful from the outside. So to really believe that and to step into that more and more, you're absolutely right, Joe. It's something that can be learned, and it's something that we can grow in. We've got to start. We've got to take the first step. But then as we do that, it gets easier and easier, and we get better and better at it.
Yeah, I think that's some beautiful closing notes there, and it's a thought that I think that most of us never really have had, but you're right. As you go through it, some of the most, just even the way that the culture illustrates repulsiveness, they always have a defensive posture about it, trying to hide something. And you're exactly right. There's nothing more vulnerable than a baby, and most people can't stop looking at babies or getting enough of them. So when you put that together, it makes a whole lot of sense. So on that note, we thank everyone for listening. I know that today's cast was a little bit shorter than some of our other ones. We'll be back to our normal length next week, and we thank everyone for listening. Continue to follow us here on Twitter at FatherAndJoe, and please give us the reviews on whichever subscription site you are getting the cast from. Thank you guys very much, and we will talk to you then.